The night is the hardest time to be alive, and 4 a.m. knows all my secrets. Welcome to AMI Audiobook Review, the weekly podcast where we chat all things audiobooks, and I'm your host, Ramya Amudan, with Nisreen Abdelmajid. She's going to join us in a second to talk, but this quote for today's episode is by Poppy Z. Bright, and no, I'm not just picking it because I am having an interesting sleeping schedule. That may or may not have been part of the influence, but it's just an interesting thing to think about because we often talk about what time of day we like to read and when books hit us the most. And I'm telling you, these psychological thrillers that I've been into lately hit the best in the middle of the night, like midnight onwards. So yes, I've definitely been staying up late reading books, and the kinds of books that I've been reading feel like they're getting to a very untouched space mentally because of when we're reading it. So later on in September, when we talk about some of these psychological thrillers and really break it down, you can think back to this moment when I confessed that I've been reading at 2 a.m. to get these books in. And then sometimes, you wake up the next morning and go, wow, that was strange. Almost like you've woken up from a dream headspace, but the dream was really the books that you've been taking in and the content that you've been taking in way late at night. I kind of understand now when parents used to tell kids when they were younger, you shouldn't be watching this monster movie so late at night and so close to bedtime. Except now the monsters are characters and in the books, and they're doing some very questionable things as adults. Okay, that's it. That's all for the teasers. Let's move on to the CELA homepage where there are 3 featured titles. These titles you can find on celalibrary.ca along with all other titles offered in that vast catalog of ebooks, Daisy Books, and audiobooks for your download. The Whispers by Ashley Audrain, which is a suspense and thrillers. Then we have The Wager by David Graham. This is a history. And The Misses by E.L. James, which is a romance, and we still haven't checked that out, but go to celalibrary.ca if you're interested in any of the above titles. Nisreen, you are here with me because you have some book talk chat, that's not redundant at all, some book talk that you want to mention.
Yeah, so Ramya, audiobooks have taken the book market by storm, as we know that. I mean, that's why we're talking about audiobooks in general here on this podcast. Audiobooks are considered the fastest growing book format according to Good e-Reader, and all these rising trends in audiobook platforms show how people prefer to listen to audiobooks nowadays. I mean, a lot of people prefer to listen to audiobooks by multitasking too. I mean, for me, I have been multitasking. I've if I had the chance to read physical books, I don't think I would have the time nowadays. So the fact that we get to multitask, do it in many different situations, it's beneficial for a lot of people. But Ramya, does this mean traditional reading is fading away? And I'm here to say that even with the rise in audiobooks, I don't think it will ever replace physical books and traditional reading.
For who, though? I have to challenge that in the sense of replace might be talking about people. I mean, not might be, definitely is talking for the people who can pick up physical books to begin with, right? So when we talk about like print and accessibility for books and print-based disabilities, or just insert whatever identity you want to here, but the challenge is that not all of us even grew up reading physical books. Maybe we could understand physical books because others have read physical books to us, and your grandma sat in her rocking chair and you had story time with her and she flipped through that book. But for me and for many others who can relate, like, all we've ever had is audiobooks, or all we've ever had is audible ways of taking part, right? And so, yeah, and auditory. So there's really that question about it. Now, of course, if we're talking about in general, on the wider scope, yeah.
Of course. I think this question is very generalized. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
um, but a
Definitely.
nice fact to know And why I'm telling you that I don't think it will replace physical books and traditional reading in general is that,
Mm-hmm.
according to Goodreader, even with the rise in audiobooks, still 65% of readers still favor physical books for their reads. So
Mm-hmm.
I think even after all these book platforms that have passed these generations, physical books still are a favorite for a
Yeah.
lot of people.
Yes. I think it's two different kinds of reading, honestly. Obviously, not all of us have the choice to be able to say, I prefer a physical book today, or today I feel like enjoying a nice audiobook. But definitely, there are two different kinds of ways of taking in books when you're talking physical books versus audiobooks. So when we say that the traditional book won't go away, or even compared to ebooks, yeah, I can completely understand where that's coming from. And that is awesome. Hey, have you ever heard of cozy mysteries as a genre?
Yes.
Okay, well, I don't know if I know exactly what that means, so we're going to find out because Bill Shackleton's joining us for our audiobook chat, and he's going to tell us all about his interest in cozy mysteries. This is AMI Audiobook Review. Let's check in with an avid audiobook listener. We're opening up the space at this point to review, discuss, recommend, browse, conceptualize, and reminisce on audiobooks. Today's guest is Bill Shackleton. Now, Bill takes on many roles at AMI. He's our live reporter here. He's the presenter of The Buzz with Bill on Kelly and Ramya, and he's the man of the best of the buzz, which is the AMI original podcast made from these conversations on The Buzz with Bill. Billy, it's our first time having you on AMI Audiobook Review. Welcome.
Hello, yeah, glad to be here.
Now, you consider yourself an avid audiobook listener, right? Like, you've been listening to audiobooks when they were just being called talking books and whatever they were before
Oh,
that.
I remember talking books. Yeah, yeah, I sure do.
No, okay, so what was the first form of audiobook listening you did? Do you remember?
First of all, the original talking books that I know of
Mm-hmm.
were recorded on records, and this was many moons ago.
And you were a
And
kid when you were listening to
yeah,
records.
you
Okay.
you needed you needed a turntable with speed 16.
That's
Um,
specific.
yeah, because they were basically long playing records, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Then the next, the ones that I remember first using, they were gigantic, like cassette type. They came from, some of them came from England. The cartridges were like four or 5 pounds, and the machines were 50, 60 pounds. People might remember that, and they were 18 tracks, and you needed, of course, a special machine to play them. So
Wow.
they were really incredible. The audio wasn't as good, of course, as it is now. And then they went to 4-track cassettes.
Mm-hmm.
They needed a special machine to play that. And then they went to the conventional cassettes where you still needed a 4-track player to play them.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, now we're down to Audible where you can actually download them.
We're down to clicking a button
Yeah, that's
on a
right.
browser
Yeah,
to
that's
pay
right.
for an audiobook and have it in our virtual libraries. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's you've lived through it all. But I'm curious as a blind person, how did you keep track? First of all, were you owning audiobooks? Were you just borrowing them? And or talking books, I guess. And how did you identify track after track just to get through one book?
Well, the CNIB had a library, so they would just send you books in the mail,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'd send them back. So the way it
Even with
worked,
the records.
well, I didn't use the records. I just know they existed. But
Ah,
I'm
so
sure
for
I
you.
think that's how it worked.
Sure.
The way you would do, you'd put one of these gigantic cartridges or cassettes on this machine, and then it would start playing, and then it would say end of track, and then you would press a button to get to the next track,
Mm.
and that's how it worked.
Okay, so you didn't have too much trouble.
No, you didn't turn it over.
Okay, okay. The thing that I would be wondering about is like how you identify the books at all. Like now we don't
Oh,
even have to think about these things because titles are accessible if you're a screen reader user or etc. Right? Like with Daisy and digital formats. But before you're keeping track of things physically and cassettes. And I remember even when I was using CD or Daisy player, like physical Daisy discs, I was like, I can't even keep track of that. And as a
w-
low vision person, mostly because I had a messy organization system. But how
I
about for you?
think if I remember correctly, these huge cassettes that they had, you just could put you just had to put it on. You
Right.
didn't know what it was. You put it on and it started playing, and of course they'd
And
give
then
the
you
title.
identify what it is.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
That's amazing. No, it's really interesting to hear about it. I know I'm always making you give me history lessons when it comes to these things, Billy, but it's interesting to think about like how much things have changed and how much people have had to adapt to those changes. So do you have a favorite time through all this change in technology? Do you have a favorite time of listening to audiobooks with a certain format?
Usually after work. I do it
Mhm.
at night.
And
I
what was
like
it?
it at night.
Cassettes, CDs, Daisy? Do you prefer it all in digital now? Like, how
Oh
did you
yeah,
best prefer audiobooks?
I do it, and I do Daisy online, and I do like digital. I do Audible, right?
Mhm. But do you miss the cassettes or the
No, not
CDs?
really. The audio quality wasn't always good. No, and
Okay.
the cassettes jammed, and there were things about it that were good and things not so good. No,
Yeah.
I'm rolling with this Audible now.
Good. And speaking of which, Audible is a paid membership. Is that where you do primary all of your reading?
That and Sella.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, of course our friends at Sela, we got to shout them out. What are you reading right now? Are you in the midst of anything?
Well, I am just started an Agatha Christie book. Agatha Christie's been around, you've heard of
Forever.
her.
Mhm.
And but I haven't I there's a bunch of short story collections that I've never gotten to yet. So I'm glad to have I've started a one that's like it's about Miss Marple, and she's a works she is a basically a an elderly lady who solves crime through with from her chair in this little village in St. Martin Mead in England.
Mhm.
So that's the one I'm doing now, and I've done a couple of other series which I can highly recommend.
Sure, but are you a general fan of Agatha Christie?
I like her books.
Yeah. We have a contributor on this show, Amir Khan, who had tried to read Murder on the Orient Express and just absolutely detested the experience of reading that book. And I don't know if he's talked about it on the show yet, but we have to get him on to do that if he hasn't already. His review is so fun because it's a classic, right? So when you hear
Yeah.
about people who just can't stand a classic, it's very funny and very entertaining. But do you have any thoughts on Orient Express?
Well, maybe the reason why people have a time reading some of these classic books is that there's no internet. Like you can't relate. It's a different time period,
That's so true.
a different era. I mean, there's no iPhones, there's no, you know what I mean? Like there's no text
Forensic science
messaging.
was so
Yeah,
different.
that's right. Oh yeah, absolutely.
You can't just send things to a lab on the
No,
Orient Express and have it
no,
back.
that's
Okay.
right.
That's pretty funny. Are you a mystery fan in general?
Mystery and political political intrigue, and I like the Robert Ludlum books. I used to go for the really bad blood and guts ones, and then I've changed my style, and I like the cozy mysteries because they take place in English villages, and it's just more. There is violence, but I like the books that have they talk about the pub, they gossip. There's the general story, and then these books take place in these small villages, and I sort of transport myself there.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And it just I like the small town life.
So it's the geography.
Yeah,
Do you
that's
also
right.
pay attention to the history? Like if you're talking about books or if the books are set in a certain time period, does that make an intrigue?
Oh,
Interest-free?
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talk about gaslights. History is incredible. The horses, the horse carriages, and that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, or any of that. I can't speak about it for myself, but I know that there are a lot of people who love historical fiction just because it puts you in that, time frame of another era, and then sometimes you get really deep into a particular kind of era or particular time in history, right? So, that kinda stuff is interesting, but for you, it's more about that small town geography
Yeah,
and
small
mystery.
small towns,
Okay.
just life and.
Specifically English?
I prefer English. I don't know what it is, why. I do prefer that type of an English book.
Interesting. Okay, so, like, British writers and such.
Yeah,
Um, do you find these to be quirky genres? Or, like, when you say cozy mysteries, that feels like a trend word. These days it feels like people are into cozy mysteries. But do you find that to be like a very niche genre? Is it hard to find books like this? Are there only particular authors, or is there enough on this to keep you going?
there's plenty,
Yeah.
absolute
Okay.
plenty. If you type in cozy mystery into Audible, you'll get more authors than you can count. Like, yeah, I think it is a niche,
Mm,
but there's no shortage of books, I can guarantee you. And there's no shortage of authors.
right. Of course. Yeah, and I guess it doesn't have to be a popular author or someone who's absolutely well known. It could be just, you're into that book and you'll go for whoever writes it. Are you that type of person? Like, you don't need to know the name of an author. Like, you're totally down to explore new authors all the time.
Absolutely. I don't care. I mean, I don't care who the author is as long as the book is good. And the same thing with, like, I am sort of particular with narrators because some of the narrators, are better than others. And
Mm-hmm.
there are certain narrators I look for because I just know by experience I've listened to them before and I like them. And sometimes if the narrator is good, I'll download the book.
Right. And will you complete it? Like, what if the narrator is good and you download the book and then the book itself is meh? Will
I
you
put it
complete the
up.
book or you put it
No,
away?
I mark as finished and then I'll go back to it maybe.
Okay. But
So
do you have a list of books you have not finished?
I can't remember what they are, but yeah, I've got a few.
Okay.
Um, some of them can be disappointing. You download it, hey, it's a great book, but no, it's not really.
Mm. I am not the type of person to finish a book if I don't like it, if I
No,
can't get into it. So, but we've spoken to a lot of completionists on the show who are determined to finish a book whether or not they particularly enjoy it or
what
can't
about
stand it.
review? What about reviews? Do you guys really are you really big on reviews? I mean, I don't rate anything. I never rate even from shopping or I never do.
That's because we're lazy, right? Like, we
Yeah,
don't contribute to the community, Bill. I think we should be more contributive. But it's true. I don't review either, but I take in other people's reviews, especially after I finish a book. I find it most entertaining to go and insightful to go and read people's reviews on a book after I've completed it to know how it's been fared in general.
the way what I generally do is I'll go to the reviews. If there's a whole bunch of reviews that people say it's not a very good book, I might not do it.
Mhm.
But what I will do if because some people say the narrator is no good, and I know who the narrator is,
Right?
and they're wrong. So I will download it because I know
You don't
some
know
people
what you're
like
talking
certain.
about. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm. The So do you often go for reviews even before you start a book?
I look at a few of them. I don't look at all, but I do look at a few, and the audio description of the book is very important, of course.
Sure. Like the synopsis.
Yeah, the
Mm.
synopsis.
Mhm. And I know you're actually, I don't know if I know this. Are you a fan of old-time radio and
Oh
audio
yeah,
dramas and such?
very
Yes.
definitely.
Okay. So do you enjoy like the multicast and multi-narrated audiobooks?
Yeah, yes, although I haven't had too many from Audible, but there's more and more and more, I guess they're producing their own,
Mhm.
they call it audio theater, but yeah, there's lots. I've got a few of them in my wish list somewhere.
And the thing is now with mysteries, a lot of authors are writing multiple perspectives, right? Like multiple POV kind of books where you're following a mystery through several characters involved. And so that goes very nicely with having multiple narrators. So I feel like with this genre that you have with the cozy mysteries, it's just like a sweet spot for multi-narrated audiobooks.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have a favorite author?
I have several favorites, but a couple of them that I really are is Leslie Cookman writes the Libby Sargent, and Libby is a sort of an elderly woman who gets involved in murder in these English villages.
Mm,
And the one is that is that I really like is Agatha Raisin, and MC Beaton has written many books, and Agatha Raisin is a crotchety old, well, maybe not old, but a sometime private detective falling in and out of love, and but Penelope Keith, who reads most of the Agatha Raisin books, is fantastic, and she actually played in the BBC series that you can download. So she is a fantastic reader
mm.
when she reads, and she did Agatha Raisin incredibly good.
So she is, to get this straight, the narrator of the Agatha Raisin series,
Yeah,
the
and
books, and
and
is
yeah,
casted in the
yeah,
BBC
that's right.
drama.
Yeah,
Very nice.
yeah, she's an incredible. If you ever listen to, she's just unbelievable.
And what draws you into the series? Is it just the character, the main protagonist?
Yeah, just a character. Again, it's just I just Agatha Raisins gets her man, and she's in and out of affairs, and she's in and out of situations, and it's just I just like the style.
Mm. How long are the books?
Six, five, six, seven. Like none of them are really that long,
That doesn't sound like it.
and I think that's a good idea. I mean, I some people like to listen to a book at one go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if for the long books, it's very difficult for most authors that I'm aware of to make if it's like 17, 18 hours, they tend to drag, right? Sometimes.
It's
So
an investment for
yeah,
sure.
it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
It is.
So how many of these books have you gone through? Do you have an idea?
At least 20 or 30 anyway, a lot of
Oh.
them.
Oh, she's really written a lot.
Yeah, she has.
Okay. Oh, that's pretty amazing. And what kind of people, like what kind of readers, if you can ponder this question, would you recommend this book to? Like, or the series to? If you like blank, you would like this.
Um if you like stories or books that have a lot of character, if you like books that are character development, if you like books that are not overly violent but still there are mysteries and there are murders, but
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to keep you awake at night. If you sort of like the easygoing, uh, that type of thing, if you like
Mm-hmm.
small town life, and when they talk about things like the roses and you know you can smell the roses, you can smell the green, it's easy to transport yourself into these places,
Right.
the pubs, the victor, the vicar, um just that type of thing.
Billy, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for talking to me. And we chat a lot of audiobooks with a lot of people, and every experience is very different because we have different preferences. But it's nice to talk to you because you've gone through all the talking book phases, or at least some of the ones you mentioned, and you've also kept in touch with the digital side. So you're still reading a lot.
Oh, still reading a lot.
Yeah. Hey, tell me again. How many of the Libby Sargent books did you read?
There's at least, I've read most of them. There's maybe 10 or 15 of them.
Okay.
And then there's Agatha Raisin. There's like 20 of those, maybe more.
Yeah.
And Sella has them, I believe.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much and hope to have you on again.
Thanks a lot for having me.
That is Bill Shackleton, and he's our live reporter here. He is a presenter at AMI. He's also part of the Buzz with Bill, so check him out on Kelly and Ramya. End of the first hour, Wednesday, Thursday, Fridays, and on the Best of the Buzz, which is an AMI original podcast that you can download. Next week, we're back with Amir Khan, who joins us at the end of the month for his 3 highlights of the month. And I'm your host, Ramya Amuddin. Technical producer for the show is Nasreen Abdelmajid. Until next week, happy audiobook listening.